Hi, I'm Denley Sweeney, and I'm going to be talking about assessing reproductive mental health needs in the Raleigh-Durham community. Maternal mental health care looks to address mental health disorders that occur during the perinatal period. It has long been underrepresented in research. However, it is rapidly expanding in both research and in policy. We are learning new things about maternal mental health care literally every single day. Within the last year, the World Health Organization has released a maternal mental health report. The White House has released a maternal health blueprint that talks about maternal mental health as almost as much as it talks about maternal physical health, which is really awesome. And then the U.S. Health and Human Services has published a maternal mental health hotline that is available 24 hours a day and aims to connect birthing people to maternal mental health resources. And that is available in both Spanish and English. And in order to understand maternal mental health, we do have to talk about postpartum mood disorders. So PPMDs refer to an array of anxiety and mood disorders, the most common being postpartum anxiety and postpartum depression. Postpartum mood disorders are one of the most frequent complications of childbirth. However, they are also one of the most underdiagnosed. It is said that around 1 in 7 women suffer from a PPMD. However, this is considered to be an incredibly conservative estimate. Barriers to accessing maternal health care adversely affect birthing outcomes. For the baby, these barriers can lead to low birth weight, birth defects, and even stillbirth. And for the parent, they can lead to an increased risk of diabetes, preeclampsia, stress and depression, an increased risk of PPMDs, and even death. Research tells us that support throughout the perinatal period is absolutely crucial. Increased support is directly linked to increased birthing outcomes overall. This study builds upon a previous study that I conducted over the last year. The study started out as a class project in my reproductive mental health class, where researchers were interested in identifying what support was available in the Raleigh-Durham area, what support did birthing people actually access and utilize, and then what support did birthing people report still really needing. I interviewed and surveyed 114 people, mainly from the Raleigh-Durham and Chapel Hill area. There was subpar racial diversity, but income levels were pretty well distributed overall, and you can see that evident by this graph here. The median age for participants was 41, with that age ranging from 25 years to all the way up to 66. And then years giving birth ranged from 1984 to all the way up to 2022, with the most common being 2018. And this just kind of tells us that the most common age of children at the time was about 4 years old. I recruited my participants using a purposive sampling method. I recruited them using many social media community groups online. My survey was mixed methods. There was 24 questions querying about participants' experiences with their family, job, and community resources while pregnant, while giving birth, and in the postpartum period. And then the survey ended with one general demographic question, but no directly identifying information was asked. And I analyzed my data using thematic analysis, which we will go into more moving forward. I will talk about my results, first addressing job resources, then moving into family resources, and then finally addressing community resources. So most participants did have a job while pregnant. Additionally, most participants also reported that their job was supportive of their pregnancy. However, half of participants desired more support from their job. Again, most participants went back to work after giving birth, but more than 2/3 of participants desired a longer maternity leave, and only 26% reported having a sufficient maternity leave. Another statistic that really resonated with me when looking at the job demographic is that half of participants reported not feeling successful balancing their responsibility at work and also their responsibility as a parent. Moving into family support, participants largely reported having support from the child's other parent, either mostly or all of the time. And then this support was most significant to participants in the form of physically caring for the child, providing emotional support, and also providing sleep support. So that could look like rotating night care or letting the birthing person sleep in more, just so that that birthing person is resting and sleeping more than they were previously. And then the support was wanted from the child's other parent in the form of them taking initiative and helping share the mental load of parenting. They wanted more help physically taking care of the child, and they also wanted their child's other parent to be more educated or overall informed. Outside of the child's other parent, the most commonly reported supportive family members were the mother and the sister. The most significant support from other family members looked like these family members, again, helping take care of the children, cooking or bringing the family food, and then also providing that emotional support and that advice piece. Family support looked like the participants desiring their family to live closer or visit more often, desiring more physical help with the children and also more emotional support. So even though they did have physical help and emotional support, they also desired more of it. This is my thematic word map. And then in the ovals, you can see the themes that I just talked about. And then in those squares are actual responses from my participants. So when looking at the theme of being brought food or cooked for, participants reported that their family members made all of their meals, offered to cook or bring them food, and also cooked for the birthing parents' other kids. And this was very significant. They reported in terms of helping with childcare that their family members fed the baby early in the morning. They came to stay and help take care of the children, and they also helped with childcare right after birth, and that was significant for participants. And additionally, when talking about emotional support and advice, participants felt like their family listened to them. They felt like they gave advice and would answer questions. And then they also felt like they could talk to their family members without being judged, and that was very important. When looking at support that was wanted by family members, they wanted their family to live closer, to have more support and not feel so isolated. They wished that their family lived in the same state as them. And then they also reported being able to check in on the phone often, but they wanted actual visits more often. They wanted family members to help with the children more. They wanted someone to be able to take the child and to help give the birthing person a break. They wanted more help physically caring for the child so that they could have the opportunity to bond with their baby. And they also reported wanting someone to watch the baby so that they could have the opportunity to go see a therapist. This kind of ties us into providing more emotional support. They wish that their family members had respected their boundaries and their requests more. They wish that they had provided more affection and empathy overall. They also wish that the family members had noticed if they weren't doing okay and kind of intervened. This is a quote that really resonated with me from one of my participants. And I remember reading it the first time, and I remember reading it and resonating with me every time after that when I was coding. And I just wanted to put that on this slide. It says, "I didn't even know what postpartum anxiety was until I was 6 months into living with it, and I'm a nurse." And that just really resonates with me because I think it just goes to show how important and how strong these barriers are. Because even if you have all the resources in the world, there still may be something preventing you from knowing and from seeking help and getting help. In terms of community resources, participants were pretty straightforwardly asked if they felt that the area that they lived in had enough resources related to reproductive mental health. As you can see, evident by this table, a little less than 60% of participants felt like it did. And then a little more than 40% of participants felt that there either were not enough resources or there kind of was enough resources. It just came with a lot of contingencies. And these no's and kind ofs really referred to participants wanting more resources overall related to maternal mental health, and then also wanting the resources that existed to be easier to find and to access. They specifically reported wanting more educational resources. And this was reported in a lot of different ways, but support groups and classes seemed to be something that was reoccurring in the data. And I think it's also important to note that educational resources were wanted in both the hospital setting and also outside the hospital as well. Participants were also asked what part of the childbirth process they were most and least prepared for. They reported being most prepared for the physical act of caring for the child. And then the second most commonly reported answer was being physically prepared for nothing. Lastly, participants were prepared for having physical supplies for the child, such as diapers, bottles, clothing, and things like that. Participants were least prepared for feeding issues, and of these, the most common being breastfeeding issues. They were not prepared for the impact on their mental health and emotional state, and they were also not prepared for the lack of sleep that they would have to adjust to. So what has changed since the first time that I conducted this study? Overall, the themes largely stayed the same. Socioeconomic data seem to show no obvious relationship between income level and preparedness for childbirth, which I think is really interesting. A lot of the same concerns were shown across socioeconomic statuses. And then also the desire for increased mental health resources also stayed consistent across socioeconomic levels. In conclusion, participants overall were not prepared for the impact that the childbirth, pregnancy, and postpartum period would have on their mental and emotional health. Participants desired more maternal mental health resources, and 50% were not confident in their ability to ask for help. And this also really resonates with me because it tells us that even if these resources are available, if we are not actively working to break down these barriers, then people may not be receiving help. Barriers to accessing care did come in the form of structural barriers such as transportation, childcare, any sort of logistics that was preventing people from being able to actually seek maternal health care, financial barriers, and educational barriers. And then participants largely agree on community and career resources. So women are still in caregiving roles, and we see this through the mother and the sister being the most commonly reported family members to be supportive. And jobs are not providing enough time off. And we see this through almost 70% of participants agreeing that their maternity leave was not long enough. And not only did they desire a longer maternity leave, they also desired a longer maternity leave for their spouse. In terms of implications, I think it's just really important to note that maternal mental health care is a public health concern that is just recently becoming researched and talked about more. There is still so much work to be done, especially with the inclusion of marginalized communities. Physically having resources available, as I've said before, is not enough. We have to do the work to break down these barriers to accessing these resources. And that really is how people will be able to access maternal mental health care. I did want to leave the U.S. Health and Human Service maternal mental health care hotline up just in case anyone wants to utilize this information. And I just want to say thank you so much for listening to my presentation, and feel free to reach out with me with any questions you may have.